Hey everyone, I'm Bibi and today I am excited to share with you how I set up and play my custom Sims 2 neighborhoods. This is Falarine. This is my current off-screen hood which I've been playing for over a year now. I thought this is a perfect opportunity to show you guys what I do with my game outside of regular videos and give you some insight on how to create characters and lore that are uniquely yours. Just to give you a teaser about what is currently happening in Falarine so far, we have a romance between a fairy and a vampire, a feud between two affluent families caused by a love triangle spanning several sim decades, the mysterious disappearance of a little girl, and a man who will make Don Lothario and Daniel Pleasant combined pale in comparison to his romantic adventures. I've talked a lot about this before, but I'm someone who prefers playing with original Sims as opposed to the pre-made hoods, and I often read discussions by people online who say they can never get attached to their original characters, they don't know what to do with them, they don't know how to set up a hood, how to come up with stories and create their own intricate lore. This video is for you. This video is all about that, so I hope it can help you out. This is just video number 1 of a big series I'm planning which will cover all sorts of aspects of story-driven rotational gameplay in The Sims 2. This is also going to be a fall-themed video series because it's currently October and I'm so freaking cozy and happy about fall weather. We love it in here. So, over the next few weeks, I'll introduce you to all the characters that live here while giving you inspiration on how to make your gameplay more interesting so that you never get bored or tired of playing the same hoods and sims all the time. I'll also provide links to helpful custom content and mods that might be useful. So, let's go back to the very start. The way I set up my custom hoods can be divided in 3 simple steps. First, I always start with a clean template. This gives me a blank canvas to work with. I rely on some essential mods as well to properly set up a new hood. Next, I create all of my Sims in Body Shop. These will be the founding members of my new hood. I create them as families in the game, and then I carefully plan out the geography of my neighborhoods. I consider things like natural features, residential areas, and commercial zones when I do my planning. You don't even need to do any hood decoration at the start, but placing lots strategically is crucial for storytelling later on. Okay, now let me explain each of these steps in a little bit more detail. Let's start with the technical aspects of setting up a custom hood in The Sims 2. Seasoned players probably already know all of this, but I'll share my method anyways because I know a lot of people who are new to The Sims 2 also watch my videos and ask me about these things in the comments. As I said, I always start with a clean template. Normally, in an unmodded game, if you create a new hood from the custom hood button in the menu, it'll just generate tons of character files, the same stray pets you always see by default, and I believe the Pleasant View townies as default townies. I'm not sure about that, but I've had that happen all the time, so I assume that's the way it is. Now, some people probably don't mind this, but I always want to make a truly empty hood where every townie and NPC that exists is unique to this specific hood. If you want to create a whole unique neighborhood like this means you will have to download some things in advance, but trust me, the time you invest in this part of the process will be worth it down the line. I use these clean and empty hood templates for all of my hoods. There are tons of instructions here. Carefully read the pages. You have to read these carefully to install the new template successfully. But this is a mandatory step if you want to start a completely blank hood from scratch. The next stuff I'll recommend you get are all the mini mods and fixes that prevent your game from spawning a billion characters. I'll link all of these essential mods in the description of the video. I won't explain every single mod separately because they all have their own technical details and it'll take a ton of time. But to give you the TLDR, using these mods will prevent overpopulation of your hoods with too many character files, which will give your hoods more longevity, more playtime in the long run. I also recommend you download the hood checker and periodically make backups of your neighborhood folder in Self and run your neighborhood folder through the hood checker program just to make sure that The Sims 2 won't self-destruct as it's prone to doing every once in a while. Of course, the bat box is an absolute must-have modded object and I personally can't play without the Sim Blender either, so I'll link those two as well. You can also download a custom map for your hood or use one that is already included in the game. The one I used for Falarine is called River Haven. I believe it's one of the default maps that that come with the game, but what I particularly like about it is that it's sort of separated into 3 distinct sections, which is crucial for how I set up the different areas within this hood, which I'll talk about in a minute. And before I start decorating the hood itself, I create my founders, my original Sims. I always create my custom Sims in Body Shop, not in CAS, in-game, because I feel like it gives me more control and less distractions. It's also way easier to package Sims and come back to edit them later on or share them with other players who might want to download them. I've tried different starting numbers of Sims in the past, but the sweet spot for me is probably 12 Sims, 6 male and 6 female Sims, one of each aspiration type per gender. I think this gives me enough variety of characters, but it's still manageable enough in the beginning stages. So I have 12 founders in Valorine. Those are Chaska Tabaja, Jessica Andrews, Luis Delgado, Thao Nguyen, Luca Falore, Regina Gomez, Atticus Patton, Fernanda Cabrera, Ash Lawrence, Daisy Silvermoon, Peter Elvin, and Anne-Marie Dushku. Each of these Sims has their own background, which has currently evolved organically during gameplay. I don't play strictly once-based because it gets too boring and repetitive in the long run, at least for me. This is currently a hot discussion in the community. I know Batty Natty, Sims Princess, and Kaylee83 recently made videos about story-based gameplay and moving past playing directly once-based. I'm honestly happy to see more creators talking about this because I feel like creating lore for your characters is a much more engaging way to play the game without getting burnt out after a couple of generations. I've been playing The Sims 2 since it came out, and this is the best approach if you want to spend years with your characters and truly connect with them. While I create my custom Sims in Body Shop, I try to brainstorm ideas about their personality, and you can do that too by asking yourself questions, from simple things to more in-depth ones. For example, why do they carry their hair like that? What is their favorite color? What does their personal style say about them? What was their upbringing like? Where do they come from? Where do they want to go in life? And you can also use the in-game systems like the interest system, the aspiration system, and the hobby system to decide on those things as well. I know there's the traits projects mod too, but that's just a bit too much mod management for my liking. So I truly just rely on my imagination for most of this. And I genuinely think it's also a really helpful exercise, especially as an adult, to kind of push your brain in the direction to think in that whimsical, childlike, creative way. Because most of us lose touch with that part of ourselves when we grow up, but The Sims provides a sandbox environment, the perfect virtual dollhouse to create the most fantastical lives you can think of, so why limit yourself with only what is hard-coded in the game? I'm also very much into astrology, which is something I use to create the personalities of my Sims. To make this work successfully though, I use the Zodiac Compatibility Overhaul, and I use the option in the RPC launcher to detach the personality points from the zodiac sign. This way, the chemistry compatibility between signs actually makes astrological sense, at least in my opinion, and there's no constraints to creating Sims based on their personality points. I'll discuss each family that lives in Valorine in great detail in my upcoming videos, but just to give you a simple, basic example of a story, let's take Peter for instance. He is a former pollination technician who has come to live among Sims because he wanted to work in the medical field. His name was actually PT11, but he changed it to Peter Elvin to sound at least a bit more down to earth while living with normal Sims. My idea was for him to reach the top of the medical career and invent fertility techniques where same-sex couples and male Sims can organically and naturally get pregnant. Basically, I'm creating a story justification for using certain mods that allow those things to happen. However, over time, Peter's life evolved in a completely different direction, and you'll see what I mean about that when I show you his family another time. So this is basically how I start my Sims. You can also write a short bio in the bio option in the personality panel of the Sims themselves. I love doing that too. I just like writing in general, so I usually keep a notebook on my desk where I write down my ideas, and I keep a Notion template for my hood, which is a whole separate video in and of itself, so we won't get into that right now. Using this method, you can also create your own townies too. Personally, I enjoy it when the game surprises me with randomized townies, and many of them are now playable members of the households that populate Valorine. When I create my original hoods, I start by imagining the history of the town. When was it founded? What major events shaped its development? Is it a new town? Is it an old town? Falerine is surrounded by rivers that flow somewhere off the map, into a bay and into the Big Sim Sea. It's a town with a temperate climate that experiences all 4 seasons with slightly longer winters and cooler summers. I try to think about the town's economy, politics, and social dynamics. This adds depth to the storytelling. My original founders all started off living in apartment lots, and these buildings actually served as a sort of class divide for the hood. Well, listen, we hate class divide in real life, okay? But it makes for a fun challenge in The Sims 2, so we had 3 apartment buildings. Expensive, average, and cheap. To decide which Sims ended up where, I used a random number generator and I rolled to see how much each Sim will have in starting simoleons. Here's what that looks like. I'd roll between 1,000 and 7,000. So for example, if Regina Gomez rolled 6,000, she would start out living in the expensive apartment building. I rolled for each family in order until every building was populated, and then I started playing them rotationally. I play seasonal rotations, which is a bit long for highly populated hoods, but it works well enough for me. As I said, originally the hood had only 3 apartment buildings, but over time, as you can see, I've expanded a lot with original builds and lots I've downloaded from other creators. The river separates the 3 types of districts we have, although there's more nuance now than in the beginning. In the central area we have the city core and the downtown of Falerine, where we have huge expensive houses and lots of community lots. This is where our more affluent founders started out originally, and one of them currently owns the most expensive house in the hood here, but you'll learn how he got there when I make an in-depth video about him. Over on the other side is a residential area for middle-class Sims, which is where our founders with average income started out. Most of them are doing really well right now, but we've got these more traditional-looking family homes with spacious backyards, lots of space for kids and pets to play around. Lots of families live here. Now down across the bridge, the lower half of the city is a bit more run down. We've got industrial areas, smaller homes, tiny community lots. The neighborhood's graveyard is also here and it's already filling up. Overall, this isn't the best area to live in. We have the cheapest housing here. Our broke Sims started out living here in the trailer park, and most of our college graduates actually and new adults buy their first property here unless they already have inheritance, and they slowly grow from there. And lastly, in the top right corner of the map, we have a more rural area. This is actually a fairly new development, but we have a couple of households here. There's a special group of forest people here, and a huge family farmhouse as well. This area is for the Sims that don't like the noise of the inner city and prefer the fresh air and slow lifestyle among nature. In the beginning, when you make a new hood, your Sims don't know each other. You can rely on them to randomly meet, but I find that it's more interesting to spawn them all on a lot or invite everyone over somewhere in an apartment so they can all start interacting with each other. That's super helpful to see any hints of relationships and enemies forming organically based on chemistry, aspiration, and zodiac compatibility. I also use this opportunity to randomize the gender preferences of my Sims. I use the ACR mod for that, and I usually set my gay and bi chance to 20%. I like having a decently high percentage of gay Sims in my hoods, and that's why I allow myself to use mods that allow same-sex couples and male Sims to get pregnant, because I want them to pass on their genes down in generations. As I said, I play rotationally, and although I've been loving playing legacy style, rotational gameplay is still the best because you never miss any special moments that your Sims experience. I also take lots of screenshots and notes to keep track of events and character developments. I think the game does a great job at challenging the player, chance cards for random events, Sims create their own relationships, reputations, and enemies. There are no rules and no mistakes really, and that's what makes The Sims 2 awesome. I plan out story arcs for different characters, thinking about how they'll interact with each other and influence each other, but I also leave lots of wiggle room for spontaneity. Sometimes the game throws unexpected events that I incorporate into the lore, and I can't wait to show you where these families are at in life right now. And that's a brief overview of how I set up and play my custom Sims 2 hoods. Check out the description box for links to everything that I have mentioned in this video if you want to download any mods. Currently, I have over 20 active households in Falerine. That's a lot. Each household has its own unique flair. Some are mysterious, others are messy. Many are wholesome, but all of them are incredibly different and fun to play with. In the next few videos, we'll do some building and I'll give you a deep dive into the specific stories of these families. I hope I'll see you there. Let me know in the comments. Do you like playing with original Sims and how do you come up with your own stories? Please like this video if you found it helpful. It helps me out as well. And subscribe if you want to see more Sims 2 content like this. Thank you for watching and I'll see you soon with another video. Bye!